Hi guys, welcome back to another pre-dental video. So today I'm going to be talking about dental school interviews. I'm just going to be giving a few little basic tips for getting yourself started, thinking about your interview process, how to prepare for these interviews at the different schools. So just for a little background, if you've never seen me before, my name's Haley. I'm a senior currently at Michigan State University. I did apply this past June, so this application cycle, and I was accepted to 4 schools on December 2nd this year. I'm not going to be talking about the specific schools that I interviewed at just for confidentiality purposes, but I am going to give you general tips about how I tried to prepare for all the interviews, and I think that it was successful considering that I was accepted to 4 of the 5 schools that I interviewed at. Okay, so I just have on my phone, I have kind of 4 groupings of general tips. So the first thing, probably pretty self-explanatory, you should know the interview style of the interview you're going into, and you can find that by talking to current dental students at the school or looking it up online. That way when you get there, you're not going to be surprised by anything and you'll know what you're walking into. The second thing is to know your why, know your app, and know your questions. So your why is why dentistry. Even though you might not get asked that all the time, it's kind of incorporated into the whole interview because it's an interview for dental school. So they're looking for characteristics within you that would make a good dentist. So your why should just reflect you personally, your own story, your own reason that you're passionate about this. And if you don't think your why sounds very passionate, then that's something to work on and maybe even something to reconsider. It doesn't need to be something crazy or unbelievable because, again, that doesn't seem very genuine to people. Mine was pretty simple, and I think being simple is fine as long as it is genuine and they can tell that you mean it and that you're passionate. So the next thing I said was to know your application. Obviously, they might have a chance to see your application. Interviews have different formats. Some are open file where they have reviewed it, some are closed file where they haven't, some they've seen everything including your grades, some they haven't seen your grades. So you need to know that as well as when you are looking at the interview format. That's another good thing to be asking people, is it open or closed file? But either way, they probably will ask you about your application or be asking you about yourself, where you will be giving information that you probably put on your application. So you should know all those things that you put on your app very well and be able to talk about them, have additional information to add beyond the little blurb that you put on your application, have a personal story to tell of a reason that that experience was really impactful. This is just kind of a bonus tip. I think that having stories really helps your interview. It makes you very memorable. You want these to be concise, to the point, memorable stories. You don't want to spend your whole 5 minutes with this person going on and on about this one little thing because that's not going to be very memorable at all. But if you have a story that's personal and really exemplifies whatever you're trying to show them, it's much better to show them via your actions explaining what happened versus just saying, I am this type of person, I do this type of thing. I hope that kind of makes sense. So yeah, be sure that you know things on your application and you're able to expand upon them. And then the last thing I said for that was to know your questions. So this is questions that you want to ask the interviewer. So whether that's a dental student, faculty, like a previous graduate, something like that, you should know what kind of questions you want to ask them about the school. Usually you have a whole day that you're at the school, so you're able to ask questions all day long, whether that's after your interview period or before your interview. So it might be hard to have questions, so you could kind of save one that you know you're going to wait to ask till you're with the interviewers. But for me, I found that they just kind of flowed naturally. Like when you're in a conversation with someone, they just kind of come up like, oh yeah, please tell me more about that, or how was your experience with this one thing? So stuff like that, I think, just shows that you're listening to them. You're not sitting there petrified, waiting for them to ask you a question. You're actually like engaging in a conversation. And you're able to, again, ask them questions in return to them asking you questions about the school, about them personally, about their life experience, about their career path in dentistry. Things like that are all totally good to ask. Definitely focus your questions on the school though, but 1 or 2 things about the actual interviewer, they'll probably appreciate having something a little different to talk about. Alright, so the third tip is don't be too over-rehearsed or over-practiced. However, I would practice a little bit. So like I said, for me, general practice would be making sure you're refreshed on your app. I didn't really have to look over it because everything I put on there I'm very invested in, and I'm pretty much doing this year too, like the same extracurriculars and things, so I have plenty to talk about with them. But if you did put anything on there that you haven't done in a while, like a job from freshman year that you put a lot of hours in then but you don't do now, or like a research position that you used to do, things like that, I would make sure you refresh yourself on in case they ask you about it. But anyways, don't over practice. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I think some people still do it, whether they're in a mirror trying to answer that why dentistry or whatever. I think you really just need to treat this as what it is. It's a conversation. Dentistry is a very person-oriented career, so you're going to be talking to people all day. When you're not working on the patient, you're talking to them before, talking to them after, you're talking to people within your practice or wherever you're working. So they just want to see that you have the ability to speak well, to articulate yourself, to articulate your thoughts, to communicate, to make someone feel comfortable, to make someone feel like they're being heard and listened to. So I think just kind of trying to treat it like a normal conversation is the best way that you can go. Obviously, you're trying to show them your best self and everything, but you do just want to treat it like it's a normal conversation with someone new that you're meeting, getting to know them, getting to know you, kind of highlighting your strong points a little more than you probably would with any other stranger. But yeah, I think just don't over-rehearse. I did practice one time with one of my friends, Amanda. We just stayed after pre-dental club for like 30 minutes and went through some dental school interview questions that we found online, just asking each other and kind of giving each other feedback, like, oh, make sure you talk a little slower, or oh, if you say this, they might respond with this, so how would you counter that? Just kind of like playing a role of a more critical interviewer or a more friendly interviewer for each other can be helpful, but you really don't need to do that more than once, and you really don't need to spend more than like 30 minutes to an hour on it. Assuming that you can talk to people normally, you're gonna be just fine. But obviously whatever you need to do to make yourself as unnervous as possible is the most important thing. You want to walk in there at least appearing confident, even if inside you're nervous. You want to at least show to them that you're a confident person. Don't be over rehearsed or practice too much or say word for word the exact same answer at every interview. Alright, so my last tip is more about interview day, interview travel. So I had 2 interviews in state and 3 interviews out of state. So the 3 out of state, I drove to 2 and I flew to 1. So anytime that I was driving or flying for like out of state, I would stay at a hotel. So I tried to get there the day before. That way I would be able to make sure if there was any travel delays, I wouldn't be late for anything, that I could get a good night's rest. And ideally spend some time exploring the cities. I think that's something that some people don't make time for, and I understand with school or with finances it's not possible, but if it is possible, definitely take time to explore the city, and interviewers will appreciate that because you can say, I like XYZ about this school, but I also love XYZ about this city. So I think that's something else, and it can make you seem much more genuine because you are, if you genuinely went out and saw the city and liked these things. So that's something I recommend, getting there early, and then also on the actual day of, leave plenty of time for travel, get to the interview itself a little early, but not too early because they tell you, for example, check-in starts at 8:30. 8:15 is fine because check-in starts at 8:30, interview doesn't start for another 30 minutes to an hour or something. Don't get there an hour on top of that because they will not be ready anyways and you might annoy them a little bit. So you don't want to be there too early, but 15 to 20 minutes is definitely appropriate, I would say. And that's when all my peers interviewing were showing up too, so I think that's kind of what's common. 2 more things going on with that actual interview day. So first thing is to eat well, so try to eat some kind of breakfast before you go for the day because different schools feed you at different times, or your interview before or after eating, something like that. So you don't really know how nervous you're going to be when you're eating, if you're going to have an appetite. So try to fuel up on some like protein, good breakfast before you go. That way you're energized enough to make it through these long interview days. And going along with having enough energy, definitely try to get sleep. I know it's really hard, so I would be planning in advance, trying the first couple nights before the interview to at least get enough sleep, because the night before you might either be really nervous or like me, can't sleep because you're really excited or scared you're gonna miss your alarm, who knows. Definitely try to be getting a lot of sleep leading up to the interview just so you're well rested. Final thing, I'm sure everyone will tell you this, just relax, be yourself, be confident. I know that's so corny, but I really think the best thing that helped me in my interviews, like I said, was telling like experiences, personal experiences and stories with my activities that I was involved in they were asking about, I think was really helpful and made me stand out. And then you can send thank you notes if you want, whether that's email. I always did email. You can also send them in paper. I don't think that makes a huge difference, but it's definitely a nice thing to do, and a lot of my interviewers did respond to my emails, so that was kind of nice to see and nice of them to do. And then, like I said, I think the last thing that made my interview stand out was just being confident and being comfortable and treating it for what it is. Yes, it's a very, I guess, scary interview for this big thing that you really want to get. You really want to get into dental school, but it is just a conversation with someone that wants to be there, wants to be meeting potential students, and has already a set image in their mind of what a student at their school should look like. So you're either going to fit into that or you're not, and you don't want to go to a school that you don't fit into anyways. So you really just want to be yourself and be friendly, be happy, be inquisitive, and articulate yourself and your thoughts very well and show them just who you are, and I'm sure your interviews will go very well. Alright, so that is everything that I have for little intro tips about dental school interviews. I hope you found this helpful, and there are tons and tons of other videos, websites with more in-depth information about dental school interviews that you could look at, but this is really all that I did, and I think it was totally sufficient. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in my next video.